Hey guys, tonight we take you back to 336 BCE, to the brutal training grounds of ancient Macedonia. You stand shoulder to shoulder with other nervous recruits as morning mist hangs over the camp. The commander approaches, his scarred face telling stories of past battles. Your heart pounds as he inspects your stance, your grip on the massive sarissa pike that feels impossibly heavy in your untrained hands. Let's be honest, the average life expectancy of a new recruit wasn't great. Between the harsh training, disease in camp, and the small matter of facing enemy armies, you'd be lucky to see next summer. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight and what time it is in your corner of the world. It always amazes me how this community connects across different time zones. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your eyes snap open at the blaring of a horn. It's still dark, the stars fading as dawn approaches. All around you, men grumble and rise from their sleeping mats. Your first day of training in Philip's Revolutionary Army has begun, and you're already behind schedule. The blast of a horn tears through your dreams like a spear. Your heart jumps into your throat as your eyes snap open, struggling to focus in the pre-dawn darkness. For a moment, you forget where you are, then reality crashes back. You're lying on a thin straw pallet in a tent with 7 other men. This is your first morning as a Macedonian recruit. You blink rapidly, trying to clear the sleep from your eyes. Around you, other recruits are stirring. Some curse under their breath. Others remain motionless, perhaps hoping this is all a bad dream. The tent flap whips open, and a bearded veteran soldier steps inside. His face is weathered, marked with a scar running from his left eye to his jaw, a permanent reminder of some long-ago battle. Up. Now, he barks. Last one standing cleans the latrines. You scramble to your feet, nearly tripping over your sleeping neighbor. The veteran walks past, eyeing each recruit with obvious disdain. When he passes you, you hesitate for just a second too long. He spits at your feet, the glob of saliva landing inches from your bare toes. Too slow, he growls. This isn't your mother's house, boy. In the Macedonian army, you move when told or you die. That's your first real lesson. This isn't just any army. This is Philip's army, reformed and disciplined, the force that will eventually help his son Alexander conquer the known world. And they don't tolerate weakness. You stumble outside into the cool morning air. The camp is already alive with activity despite the darkness. The distinctive sounds of metal against metal ring out as weapons are checked and maintained. Officers shout orders that echo across the training grounds. All around you, fellow recruits exchange nervous glances. You can almost hear their thoughts. What have we gotten ourselves into? Historians still argue about Philip's morning drills. Some claim they were deliberately brutal, designed to weed out the weak and identify those with true potential. Others suggest it was simply practical military efficiency, the natural result of creating a professional standing army in a world where most forces were seasonal or mercenary. Whatever the truth, you're about to experience it firsthand. Your stomach growls loudly, reminding you that your last meal was a small piece of bread at sunset yesterday. A nearby veteran chuckles at the sound. The bottomless pit of a new recruit's stomach, he says. Don't worry, food comes after you earn it. Sure enough, after a series of basic stretching exercises that already have your muscles protesting, you're herded toward a line of men distributing the morning meal. You receive a wooden bowl of barley porridge, slightly sweetened with honey, and a cup of watered-down wine. This simple combination will become intimately familiar. It's the standard breakfast you'll eat almost every morning for years to come if you survive. Drink it all, advises an older recruit beside you. The wine keeps you from getting sick from the water. Plus, the officers believe it builds courage. That's actually true. Macedonian soldiers received daily wine rations, unlike many ancient armies. They believed it not only provided liquid courage, but also prevented waterborne illness that could devastate military camps. Smart thinking for an army constantly on the move. You gulp down your breakfast, watching the veteran soldiers who lounge nearby, already finished with their morning meal. They eye the new recruits with amused expressions. One nudges his companion and points at a particularly scrawny boy struggling with his equipment. "That one won't last a week," he says, just loud enough for everyone to hear. His friend nods. "I give him 3 days before he runs or drops." Their casual cruelty makes sense when you realize the truth. They've seen hundreds like you come and go. Many won't survive the first month of training, let alone actual combat. Their detachment is a survival mechanism, a way to avoid forming attachments to men who might soon be gone. As you finish the last of your porridge, the sun finally breaks over the eastern horizon, bathing the camp in golden light. Officers start shouting for formations, and you scramble to find your assigned position. You stand awkwardly in line with other recruits, trying to mimic the rigid posture of the veterans. It hits you then, as you stare straight ahead, trying not to draw attention to yourself. Your old life is over. The farm, the shop, the family you left behind, all of that belongs to someone else now. From this moment forward, you are a soldier of Macedon. Your life belongs to the army and to the king. A tall officer approaches your formation, a measuring rod in his hand. This is the drill master, the man who will either shape you into a soldier or break you trying. His eyes are cold and analytical as he looks over each recruit. "Size matters in the phalanx," he announces. "The strongest and tallest among you will form the front ranks. The shorter will fill the middle and rear." He begins measuring each recruit, occasionally making notes on a wax tablet carried by an assistant. When he reaches you, the wooden rod is placed against your shoulder. You stand as tall as possible, holding your breath. The position you're assigned could determine whether you survive your first battle. "Second-rank material," he mutters before moving to the next man. You exhale slowly. The second rank is good, not exposed at the very front, but still considered a position of honor. It means they see potential in you. The measuring continues until each recruit has been evaluated and assigned. Some are directed to other officers for different training altogether. Too short for the phalanx, they'll become skirmishers or support troops. As the drill master completes his assessment, you notice a change in the atmosphere. The veterans straighten their postures even more, if possible. A hush falls over the training ground. Something important is about to happen. "Attention," bellows the drill master. "Today you begin your transformation from farmers and craftsmen into soldiers of the greatest army the world has ever known. Many of you will fail. Some will die. Those who remain will become the backbone of Macedon's might. Your first lesson begins now." Drill masters, breaking you down. The drill master circles you like a predator. His weathered face betrays no emotion as he evaluates your stance, your grip, your posture. The morning sunlight catches on the polished wooden stick in his hand, a tool he wields with surgical precision to correct your many flaws. He stops directly behind you. You resist the urge to turn your head. "Shoulders back," he says quietly. The instruction is followed immediately by a sharp jab between your shoulder blades that makes you gasp, feet wider, another jab to your ankle. Head up, the stick taps under your chin, forcing your gaze forward. Each correction comes with pain, a physical reminder that will be seared into your muscle memory. This one holds his sarissa like he's stirring his mother's porridge, the drill master announces to the group. A few veterans chuckle. Your face burns with embarrassment, but you dare not react. An assistant approaches carrying armfuls of wooden training weapons. You're handed your first training sarissa, a crude approximation of the fearsome 18-foot pike that defines the Macedonian phalanx. Even this practice version feels unwieldy in your untrained hands. A rough-hewn wooden pole about 2/3 the length of a real sarissa, but still heavier than any tool you've handled before. "Position 1, the drill master shouts. The veterans around you immediately snap into a ready stance, sarissas held diagonally across their bodies. You frantically try to mimic them, but your movements are clumsy, uncoordinated. The drill master simply looks at you and shakes his head. "Position 2. The veterans shift their weapons to a horizontal position, as if preparing to face an advancing enemy. You fumble with your sarissa, nearly dropping it. The drill master's stick finds your ribs this time. You clench your teeth against the sting. "You're already dead," he says flatly. "And you've killed the man beside you with your incompetence. Just 5 minutes into the exercise, your arms begin to shake violently. The wooden sarissa, which seemed merely awkward at first, now feels like it's made of solid lead. Sweat trickles down your back, despite the morning chill. You glance sideways at the veterans flanking your position. They stand like statues, their weapons perfectly steady, expressions neutral, as if they're merely waiting for a meal rather than holding a fighting stance. Eyes front. Another jab, this time to your kidney. Your enemy won't announce when he's coming to kill you. By the time the sun rises fully overhead, sweat pours down your face in rivulets. Your tunic clings to your back, soaked through. The summer heat beats down mercilessly on the training ground, turning the packed dirt into a baker's oven. There's no shade, no relief, no water break. Your throat feels as parched as the dust beneath your feet. What makes this experience different from other armies throughout history is the professionalism. Philip II completely transformed military service in Macedon from a seasonal occupation into a full-time profession. Unlike other Greek states where citizens trained occasionally and fought when needed, Philip's soldiers drill constantly, year-round. This innovation allowed for a level of unit cohesion and skill previously unseen in the ancient world. You're not just learning to fight, you're becoming part of a living machine. Advance 6 paces. Hold, pivot right, sarissa's level, retreat 3 paces. The drill master barks commands in a rhythm that seems impossible to follow. Each order comes just as you're struggling to complete the previous movement. The formations require perfect spacing between you and your fellow soldiers. Too close and your weapons tangle disastrously. Too far and you create a fatal gap in the defensive line. The veterans execute each command flawlessly, moving with a synchronized precision that seems almost supernatural to your untrained eye. Faster this time. Your wooden sarissa grows heavier with each passing minute. Your muscles scream in protest as you repeat the same movement for what must be the 20th time. The shaft is slick with sweat from your palms, making it even harder to maintain your grip. Your shoulders burn, your lower back aches. Even your knees throb from maintaining the proper stance. In battle, the man who hesitates dies, the drill master announces to everyone, though his eyes remain fixed on you. The man who breaks formation kills his brothers. Historians still debate whether Philip's revolutionary training methods were adapted from Theban military practices or were his own innovation. During his youth, Philip spent time as a hostage in Thebes, where he observed their elite sacred band and their military discipline. Yet the scale and systematic nature of the Macedonian training regime suggests something uniquely his own. Whatever their origin, these methods are now reshaping your body and mind with brutal efficiency. A veteran next to you notices you're struggling and subtly shifts his stance, showing you how to distribute the weight of the sarissa more effectively. It's a small mercy that provides momentary relief. The drill master pretends not to notice this brief solidarity. By midday, your failures have accumulated like the welts on your body. You've been struck for dropping your sarissa, for stepping out of line, for turning your head at the wrong moment, for countless infractions you didn't even realize were possible. Yet somehow, through this painful repetition, you've begun to internalize the 5 basic formations that form the foundation of phalanx warfare. Position 3. The command comes, and your body responds before your mind fully processes the order. Your sarissa shifts to a defensive angle, point raised to counter cavalry. The movement isn't pretty, but it's functional. The drill master notices. For a heartbeat, his expression changes, not quite approval, but perhaps a slight decrease in contempt. It vanishes as quickly as it appeared. Water break, he announces finally. 2 minutes only. You collapse to your knees, your wooden training sarissa clattering to the ground beside you. Your hands tremble so badly you can barely lift the water skin to your lips. The cool liquid is perhaps the most delicious thing you've ever tasted. Today wasn't so bad, says a veteran who kneels beside you. His voice is low, meant only for your ears. His face is tanned leather, creased with battle scars and years of campaign suns. The real training starts tomorrow. You look at him in disbelief. Worse than this, he nods, taking a small sip from his own water skin. Today they just taught you how to stand and move like a soldier. A grim smile crosses his face. Tomorrow, they teach you how to kill like one. The water break ends with another horn blast. You stagger to your feet, muscles protesting every movement. Your wooden sarisa seems to have gained weight during the brief rest. As you take your position again, you notice small blisters forming on your palms where the rough wood has rubbed your skin raw. Position 1. The drill master's voice shows no fatigue, no mercy. You raise your sarissa, fighting to keep your arms from shaking. The day is only half over. Somehow you must endure. Somehow you must learn. The alternative is failure, and in Philip's army, failure means death, either here in training or later on the battlefield. Keep your eye on the man directly across from you, murmurs the veteran beside you as you struggle to maintain formation. Not on the enemy in front of you. Trust the men on either side to protect you as you protect them. This, you realize, is the true lesson of the day. The sarisa, the formations, the drilling, they're all in service to something larger than individual skill. You're becoming part of something greater than yourself. A perfect, disciplined whole. The drill master's stick cracks against your shoulder, bringing you back to the painful present. Position 2. Weapons training, mastering the sarissa. On the third day, it arrives. You've heard the veterans talk about it in hushed, reverent tones. The wooden training model was just preparation. Now you face the real thing, the true sarissa, the weapon that transformed warfare and built an empire. It lies before you on the ground, a monster of wood and metal that seems to defy the laws of physics. 18 feet of Cornell wood, tapering gracefully from base to tip, capped with a wicked iron spearhead that gleams in the morning sun. You stare at it, mouth slightly open. The drill master stands beside the weapon, arms crossed, watching your reaction with a hint of amusement. This, he says, is what makes a Macedonian soldier different from every other fighter in the world. The sarissa stretches out before you, longer than 3 men laid head to toe. You can't imagine how any human could possibly wield such a weapon effectively in battle, let alone while maintaining formation and responding to commands. It seems more architectural than martial, a support beam rather than a weapon. Pick it up, the drill master orders. You bend down, trying to recall everything you've learned from the wooden practice version. Your hands find their positions, right hand near the butt, left hand at the point where you think the balance might be. You take a deep breath and lift. The sarissa rises unevenly. The tip shoots upward too quickly while the butt end drags. You overcorrect, and suddenly the heavy metal spike at the rear swings in a wild arc, smashing painfully into your foot. You yelp, losing control of the front end, which dips and then springs upward, the point whistling through the air. The recruit beside you jerks backward, the iron tip missing his eye by inches. And now you're dead, the drill master says flatly, along with your entire file because you've created a gap in formation. He demonstrates the proper technique, lifting the massive pike with practiced ease. The sarissa is not a spear. You don't throw it, you don't jab with it. It's an extension of the phalanx itself. You try again, this time with more respect for the weapon. The weight distribution feels impossible to manage, front heavy due to the iron spearhead, yet requiring precise control from the rear. It demands strength you didn't know you needed, particularly in your forearms and shoulders. Muscles you've never noticed before scream in protest. Wider grip, advises a veteran who notices your struggle. Right hand palm up near the butt, left hand palm down about an arm's length forward. Control comes from the rear, direction from the front. A quiet conversation catches your attention during a brief water break. 2 soldiers are talking about their sarissas, referring to them by name. One calls his Widowmaker, while another has dubbed his Persia's Bane. You glance questioningly at the veteran beside you. Many name their sarissas like companions, he explains with a half-smile. A well-maintained weapon carries its own spirit, they say. Treat it well, and it protects you in return. It's a quirky tidbit that reveals something about your new brothers in arms. These men form relationships with their weapons as intimate as those with fellow soldiers. In a world where your survival depends on a piece of wood and metal, perhaps it's not so strange. Training resumes with new intensity. Hour after hour, you practice the basic positions. Your hands blister and bleed as you learn to grip the shaft properly. The rough wood scrapes away skin until raw flesh is exposed. The veterans show you how to bind your palms with thin strips of leather to protect them until proper calluses form, hardened skin that will eventually become as tough as the wood itself. The pain is temporary, says the drill master, noticing you're wincing. The calluses are forever. A soldier's hands tell his story. He demonstrates how the sarissa is used in formation, how each rank holds the weapon at a different angle, creating a staggered wall of spear points. The front ranks hold horizontally, while those behind angle progressively downward, ready to fill any gap created by fallen comrades. The sarissa is not just an extension of your arms, he explains. It's part of the entire phalanx, 16 ranks deep, creating a forest of deadly points that no enemy can penetrate. You practice in units now, learning to coordinate your movements with 15 other men. The weight becomes more manageable as your muscles adapt, but the real challenge is synchronization. All 16 sarissas must move as one, must respond to commands instantly, must maintain perfect spacing. One mistake creates chaos. During a rare moment of rest, the veteran shares his knowledge of the weapon's construction. The shaft is made from cornel wood, chosen for its strength and flexibility. The iron spearhead is balanced by a bronze butt spike called a soroder, literally lizard killer, which serves as both counterweight and secondary weapon. Some sarissas feature an iron sleeve in the middle, possibly allowing the weapon to be broken down into two pieces for easier transport during marches. Historians still argue about the exact length of the sarissa, with estimates ranging from 15 to 22 feet, depending on the specific time period and tactical situation. Archaeological evidence remains limited, with few complete examples surviving to the modern era. What's certain is that the weapon gave Macedonian forces a decisive advantage over traditional Greek hoplite formations, whose spears measured a mere 8 to 10 feet. By midday, your arms tremble with fatigue. The sarissa seems to grow heavier with each passing hour. You've developed a rhythm, but true mastery feels impossibly distant. The drill master notices your flagging strength and approaches. Remember, control comes from the mind more than the body, he says, in a rare moment of actual instruction rather than criticism. Find the balance point. Feel the weapon become part of you. You close your eyes briefly, focusing on the sensation of the wood against your palms, the distribution of weight along the shaft. When you open them again, something has changed. Your grip adjusts slightly, your stance shifts, and suddenly, the sarissa feels different. Not lighter, exactly, but more responsive, as if it's listening to your thoughts rather than fighting against them. You lift, level, and thrust in one fluid motion. The weapon becomes almost weightless as you find its perfect balance point. For the first time, you control the sarissa rather than being controlled by it. The feeling is unlike anything you've experienced, a perfect harmony between body, mind, and weapon. The drill master watches silently, his expression unreadable. Then, almost imperceptibly, he nods, your first sign of approval since training began. It's a small gesture, but in this world of constant criticism and correction, it feels monumental. Again, he commands. With your file, your line of 16 men assumes the ready position, sarissas held vertically. The command comes, and as one, you level your weapons to the horizontal, creating a bristling wall of deadly iron. The points of all 16 sarissas move in perfect unison, steady and unwavering. The sound they make cutting through the air is like a single exhalation, the breath of a disciplined killing machine. Hold, the drill master calls. You maintain the position, feeling the connection between you and your file mates, sensing the shared purpose flowing through the formation. This is the true power of the Macedonian phalanx, not individual skill, but collective discipline. For a moment, you glimpse what makes this army unstoppable, why enemies flee before it, why Alexander will conquer half the known world with these formations. The sarissa is not just a weapon, the drill master says quietly, walking along the now perfect line. It's the backbone of our strength. Master it, and you master warfare itself. Formation tactics, becoming one machine. Your sarissa means nothing if you can't hold formation, the drill master announces, pacing in front of your unit. Your strength means nothing. Your courage means nothing. In the phalanx, we live together or die together. You stand shoulder to shoulder with your fellow recruits, feeling the press of bodies on either side. The wooden shield on your left arm, the aspis, overlaps with the shield of the man to your right. Your sarissa extends before you, its point glinting in the morning sun. For the first time since joining the army, you begin to feel something new, the power of the formation itself. The individual dies, continues the drill master. The phalanx lives. This isn't flowery philosophy. It's the brutal truth of Macedonian warfare. You've spent weeks learning to handle your weapons, but now comes the real test, becoming part of something larger than yourself. The phalanx isn't just a group of men standing in lines, it's a single organism with hundreds of spear points and a shell of bronze shields. Today we test your unity, the drill master says with an unsettling smile. Today we introduce chaos. Without warning, he hurls a stone directly at your face. You flinch instinctively, your shield arm dropping. The stone bounces harmlessly off your helmet, but the drill master is already shouting, "Dead! You and the 3 men to your left." He points to the gap you've created by lowering your shield. That's where the enemy drives their sword. That's where they kill not just you, but your brothers. The lesson is clear and painful. Your shield protects the man to your left more than it protects you. Dropping it means exposing him to danger. You raise your shield again, arm already burning from the weight. The polished bronze surface gleams in the sunlight, reflecting distorted images of the men around you. Advance 6 paces. Your unit steps forward in unison, shields overlapping, sarissas leveled. Halt! Left face, sarissas level. Before you can complete the turn, another command rings out. Right face. Retreat 3 paces. The contradictory orders create confusion. Men turn in different directions, the formation wavers. Suddenly, a group of veterans charges toward the gap in your line, wooden training swords raised. They crash into the weak point, sending recruits sprawling to the ground. All dead, declares the drill master. Every single one of you. The enemy found your weakness and exploited it. One of them speaks to your unit. In battle, you won't always hear commands clearly. Sometimes officers die. You must learn to maintain formation even in chaos. Your shield arm burns like fire now. The aspis isn't particularly heavy, about 16 pounds, but holding it in position for hours strains muscles you never knew existed. Sweat runs down your arm, making the leather grip slippery. You adjust your stance slightly, trying to distribute the weight. Shield up! The drill master's staff cracks against your shield rim, sending painful vibrations through your arm. Drop it again and you'll sleep without food tonight. You force your arm back into position, gritting your teeth against the pain. The man to your left gives you a grateful nod. He understands that your suffering protects his life. During a brief water break, a veteran shares an astonishing fact about the Macedonian phalanx. It could execute complex maneuvers in complete silence, using only visual signals. This ability terrified enemies who found the disciplined, silent advance of the bristling phalanx unnervingly inhuman. The psychological impact alone was often enough to break enemy morale before a single blow was struck. After the break, your training escalates. You're joined by other units to practice the syntagma formation, 256 men arranged in a perfect 16 by 16 square. Finding your exact position in this human grid is daunting. You must maintain perfect spacing even when you can't see beyond the men directly in front of you. Trust your training, advises a veteran. Feel the formation around you. Listen to the rhythm of the march. Your body will know where it belongs. The syntagma moves as one across the training ground, executing turns and halts with increasing precision. You focus intensely on maintaining your position, on keeping perfect distance from the men around you. The veteran officers watch with critical eyes, immediately identifying and correcting even minor flaws in the formation. See this gap? An officer pulls a recruit out of line, pointing to the space he left. This is death. He traces the path through the opening with his staff. The enemy finds this gap, pushes through, and suddenly they're behind our lines, attacking from the rear. One man's mistake destroys the entire unit. Historians still debate whether the phalanx was developed primarily as an offensive or defensive formation in Philip's tactical system. Some argue it was designed as an unstoppable advancing force, while others see it as a defensive anchor around which more mobile forces could maneuver. What's clear is that its effectiveness depended entirely on maintaining its structural integrity. The training intensifies with each passing day. You practice in full armor now, the linothorax chest protection, the bronze greaves on your shins, the Phrygian-style helmet that limits your peripheral vision but protects your vulnerable head and neck. The weight is considerable, but you're growing stronger. Your body adapts to its new reality. After 3 weeks of relentless drilling, something changes. Your unit lines up for the morning exercise, shields locked, sarissas at the ready. The drill master simply nods, and without a word being spoken, your formation begins to move forward. 30 men step in perfect unison, their footfalls creating a single steady rhythm on the packed earth. The drill master raises his hand, and your unit executes a perfect quarter turn to the left. No commands are shouted, no confusion ripples through the ranks. Shields remain locked, sarissas level. Another gesture, and you advance again, then turn right, then adopt a defensive posture, all without a word being uttered. When you finally halt, there's a moment of stunned silence. Even the drill master seems surprised by the flawless execution. Your unit has moved as one body, a perfect machine of flesh, wood, and bronze. The feeling is unlike anything you've experienced, a sense of belonging to something greater, something almost invincible. This, says the drill master finally, is the phalanx. This is what makes a Macedonian army unstoppable. For the first time since your training began, you truly understand. The endless drilling, the painful corrections, the relentless demands for perfection, all of it serves this singular purpose, creating a fighting force that transcends individual soldiers and becomes something more. That night, as you collapse onto your sleeping mat, exhausted but oddly satisfied, the veteran who's been guiding you sits nearby, cleaning his equipment. "You felt it today, didn't you?" he asks quietly. You nod, unable to find words for the sensation. "That's what keeps us alive on the battlefield," he says. Not skill, not courage, not even the gods. It's that feeling, 30 men thinking with one mind, moving with one purpose. That's what will carry us to the ends of the earth with Alexander. As you drift towards sleep, muscles aching but mind strangely at peace, you realize you're no longer just a recruit learning to be a soldier. You're becoming part of the most formidable military machine the world has ever known. Camp life, your new brothers. The training ground isn't the only place where you become a soldier. Camp life teaches you lessons just as vital to your survival as any drill with the sarissa. As you drag your aching body back to your tent after another brutal day of training, you realize that your real education is just beginning. Your tent is a simple structure of weathered canvas stretched over wooden poles, but it's now your home. Inside, 7 other men share the cramped space that smells of sweat, leather, and oil. These strangers, thrown together by the whims of military assignment, will become more familiar to you than your own family. For years to come, you'll eat, sleep, and fight alongside them as a single unit. "That's my spot," growls a burly veteran as you attempt to settle in what appears to be an unoccupied corner. His beard is thick, his forearms corded with muscle, and his eyes hold no patience for newcomers. Recruits sleep by the entrance. You quickly move to the spot indicated, right beside the opening flap where the cold night air and early morning dew will be your constant companions. This is your first taste of the strict hierarchy within the tent. Veterans claim the best spots, the warmest blankets, and first choice of everything. As a new recruit, you're firmly at the bottom of this pecking order. "And that water skin is now mine," the same veteran adds, snatching it from your belongings. You can have it back when you've earned it. Conflicts emerge daily as personalities clash in these close quarters. The short-tempered archer from the northern mountains can't stand the constant chatter of the farmer's son from the coastal plains. The old mercenary who joined for the promise of Persian gold silently judges everyone's technique. Meanwhile, the veteran who took your water skin seems to delight in making your life particularly difficult, assigning you the worst duties and criticizing your every move. "If you can't handle life in camp," he tells you one evening, "you'll never survive in battle." Camp duties fill the hours when you're not training with weapons. You learn to dig precisely measured latrines that won't contaminate water sources. You become adept at pitching tents that can withstand sudden storms. You master the art of starting cooking fires with minimal smoke that might reveal your position to enemies. These seemingly mundane tasks are performed with the same military precision demanded on the training ground. A sloppily dug latrine trench means punishment for the entire tent, a powerful incentive to get it right. The Persian army outnumbered us 3-1 at the Granicus, a scarred veteran explains as he shows you how to properly clean a cooking pot, but they couldn't maintain their camp. Dysentery killed more of them than our sarissas did. During rare moments of leisure, usually the hour before sleep, the soldiers engage in a peculiar form of wrestling. Unlike the traditional Greek style you witnessed at festivals back home, this version incorporates movements from sarissa drills. Men grapple using the same footwork required in the phalanx, maintaining balance while trying to unsettle their opponent. It's entertainment and training combined, a uniquely Macedonian development that keeps combat skills sharp even during recreation. "I'll teach you the shoulder throw," offers a younger veteran one evening, the first friendly gesture you've received. It's useful if your sarissa breaks and you find yourself in close combat. As darkness falls, the most valuable part of camp life begins. The veterans gather around small fires, sharing stories that are worth more than gold to a new recruit. They speak of battles against the Illyrians, where the phalanx held against savage mountain warriors. They describe cities in Thrace with walls higher than anything you could imagine. Some even recall the early days of Philip's military reforms, when many Macedonians resisted the new discipline. "The old warriors hated the drill at first," chuckles a graying veteran with a missing ear. "They thought real men fought by inspiration, not repetition. Philip had to execute 3 commanders before the rest fell in line. Now look at us, the most feared army in the world. You listen intently, absorbing every detail. These aren't just stories, they're lessons in survival. Each tale contains wisdom about terrain, tactics, or the tendencies of different enemies. The veterans rarely frame them as instruction, but you begin to understand that this informal knowledge transfer is as important as your formal training. Your muscles ache constantly after each day's drills. You discover pains in places you didn't know could hurt. The wooden practice sarissa has left blisters on your palms that burst and bleed, then callus over, only to blister again in new places. Yet this shared suffering creates bonds unlike anything you've experienced before. When the farmer's son collapses during a particularly brutal running drill, you and another recruit carry him back to camp without hesitation, knowing he would do the same for you. Historians still argue about the exact social structure within these Macedonian military units. Some believe it mirrored the feudal relationships of the Macedonian countryside, while others suggest it was a more merit-based system where proven ability in battle determined status. What's clear is that this structure, whatever its exact nature, created exceptional cohesion in battle. Men who lived, trained, and suffered together fought with a unity that other armies couldn't match. After a month in camp, you realize something has changed within you. During the evening meal, your thoughts don't drift to your village as they once did. You don't wonder what your family is doing or miss your mother's cooking quite so intensely. Instead, you're fully present, engaged in a heated debate about the best way to polish a helmet to avoid sun glare giving away your position. "The Thracians use beeswax mixed with olive oil," argues one soldier. "Fish oil works better in the rain," counters another. You offer your own opinion, a mixture your father taught you for treating leather, and to your surprise, they actually listen. The army has become your home. These men, not the family you left behind, are now your brothers. The ultimate sign of acceptance comes one evening when the burly veteran who stole your water skin on the first day returns from duty with an extra wine ration. Instead of drinking it himself or sharing with his longtime companions, he walks directly to you. "You held the line well today," he says, offering you the wooden cup. Your grip on the sarissa still needs work, but you didn't break formation when the drill master threw those rocks at us. That's something. You accept the cup, trying to hide your surprise. This small gesture, sharing wine instead of stealing yours, tells you more than any words could. You've begun to be accepted as a true soldier of Macedon. Not quite an equal to the veterans yet, but no longer an outsider to be tested and tormented. As you sip the wine, stronger and less watered than your regular ration, you look around at the faces illuminated by firelight. A month ago they were strangers. Now you can read their expressions, anticipate their moods, and trust them with your life. Together you'll march to the ends of the earth for Alexander, facing Persian armies and unknown lands as a single unified force. The veteran catches your thoughtful expression and nods knowingly. "Welcome to the Brotherhood," he says simply. Body transformation, forging a warrior. You catch a glimpse of yourself in a water bucket one morning and freeze, startled by the stranger staring back at you. The face is yours, but different, leaner, harder, tanned dark by the relentless sun. 3 months into your training, your body has transformed so completely that your own mother would walk past you in the marketplace without a second glance. The changes happen gradually, then all at once. Your shoulders, once suited only for carrying hay or merchant goods, have broadened and thickened. The constant lifting, thrusting, and carrying of the sarissa has sculpted them into weapons themselves. Your chest has deepened. Your arms, especially the forearms that control the unwieldy pike, have developed sinewy muscles that stand out like ropes under your skin. "Look at your hands," the veteran instructs one evening as you clean equipment together. Those aren't a farmer's hands anymore. They've changed perhaps more than any other part of you. Once soft and pink, they're now tanned, calloused weapons, hardened by endless drilling, rope work, and the friction of the wooden sarissa shaft. The skin on your palms feels like leather, cracked in places, but impervious to the blisters that once plagued you. Your fingers are thicker, stronger, capable of gripping and controlling your weapons with precision that seemed impossible 3 months ago. This transformation hasn't come easily. Every night, you collapse onto your sleeping mat, body aching in ways you never imagined possible. The pain is constant, evolving, migrating through your body as different muscles tear and rebuild themselves. Your knees throb from hours in fighting stance, your lower back spasms after days of marching with full equipment. Your shoulders burn even while resting. The pain never really goes away, an older soldier tells you when he catches you wincing while adjusting your armor. You just make friends with it. Eventually, it feels stranger not to hurt somewhere. Injuries accumulate faster than they can heal. A twisted ankle during a formation drill, a deep bruise on your thigh from a training sword, a split lip from a shield rim during close quarters practice. The Army's physicians treat only the worst wounds, the rest you learn to endure, to work through, to ignore. The veterans wear their scars proudly, each one a lesson learned and survived. Your appetite has become legendary among your tent mates. You consume twice what you once did, sometimes more after particularly demanding days. The Army diet seems too simple to fuel such growth. Barley porridge, beans, hard cheese, dried fruit, and meat perhaps twice a week when the hunting parties return successful. Yet somehow this basic fare sustains your transformation, providing exactly what your body needs to rebuild itself stronger after each brutal day. The body knows what it needs, says the camp physician when you ask him about your hunger. The same diet that makes some men fat makes soldiers strong. It's the work that makes the difference. They know what the trainers know. A hungry soldier is a growing soldier, a soldier who can march all day, fight at dusk, and still have strength to dig fortifications before sleeping, and march you do. Macedonian soldiers typically cover 20 miles daily while carrying 60-80 pounds of equipment, a feat of endurance that seemed impossible in your civilian life. The first such march left you collapsed and vomiting by the roadside. Now, 3 months later, you complete the same distance without special remark, your body having adapted to what once seemed superhuman exertion. "We're not just soldiers," your file leader explains during one such march. "We're walking siege engines. Speed is our advantage. While other armies wait for supply wagons, we arrive before they expect us, carrying everything we need on our backs." The veterans joke about your darkening skin as summer progresses. Your arms and face have turned the color of oiled leather from constant exposure to the sun. Even with your uniform on, this deep tan marks you clearly as a soldier rather than a townsman or farmer. It's a visible badge of your profession, one that sets you apart from civilians even when you're not carrying weapons. You can always spot a veteran by his farmer's tan, laughs one soldier, pointing to the dramatic line on his thigh where sun-blackened skin meets pale. Dark to the knee exactly where the tunic falls, even your sleep has transformed. Gone are the deep, oblivious slumbers of your youth. Now you sleep like a soldier, deeply enough to restore your strength, but lightly enough to snap awake at the first unusual sound. A misplaced footstep near your tent, the distant call of a sentry horn, the change in breathing of the men around you, any of these will bring you instantly to alertness, hand already reaching for your weapon. A good soldier wakes ready to fight, your tent leader told you in your first week. Now, 3 months later, you understand exactly what he meant. Your body has learned that sleep is tactical, another skill to be mastered rather than simply enjoyed. Historians still argue about the physical requirements for different roles in the Macedonian army. Some believe the front-rank phalangites were selected solely for height and strength, while others suggest technical skill and intelligence were equally valued. The hypaspists certainly required different physical attributes than the companion cavalry or the phalangites, but the exact selection process remains a subject of scholarly debate. What's clear is that the training itself reshaped recruits to fit their roles, molding bodies to meet the demands of each military function. One morning, as your unit finishes its dawn exercises, you notice the drill master watching you with an unusually thoughtful expression. He approaches as you clean your equipment. "Your form has improved," he says, the closest thing to a compliment you've heard from him. "You've put on weight, muscle, not fat." You stand a little straighter, surprised by the recognition. "We have new recruits arriving tomorrow," he continues. "You'll help train them in basic stances, show them how to hold the practice sarissa without stabbing each other. It's not a request, but an order, and a significant one. This is your first small promotion, your first acknowledgement that you're no longer just a recruit yourself. You've crossed some invisible threshold and begun the long journey toward veterancy. That night, alone by the water barrel, you study your reflection more carefully. The face that looks back at you is still yours, but it belongs to a different man than the one who arrived in camp 3 months ago. The childish softness has melted away from your cheeks. Your jaw seems more defined, your neck thicker, but the most striking change is in your eyes. They're still the same color, but something in them has hardened, focused. They've seen pain and endured it. They've learned discipline. They've witnessed the transformation of your body from civilian softness to military efficiency. You're not fully formed yet. The veterans still tower over you in skill and experience, but you're undeniably a soldier now. Your body has begun the journey that, if you survive, will eventually make you indistinguishable from the hardened men who once seemed like a different species. When you return to your tent, the veteran who first took your water skin months ago nods at you with something like respect. "Don't get cocky about training the new fish tomorrow," he says. "Remember, 3 months ago that was you, soft, scared, and useless. I remember," you say, flexing your calloused hands. "That's what will make me a good teacher." First blood, combat training intensifies. 6 months into your training, the morning assembly feels different. The air vibrates with anticipation as you notice a cart being wheeled onto the training ground. Inside, gleaming in the early light, are not the familiar wooden practice weapons, but real arms of bronze and iron. Your stomach tightens. Today marks the transition from preparation to reality. The drill master stands beside the cart, his scarred face betraying no emotion as he calls each soldier forward by name. When your turn comes, he presents you with 2 weapons, a shifos short sword with a double-edged blade and a true iron-tipped sarissa. The metal catches the morning light, reflecting it back with a dangerous glint that wooden training weapons never possessed. "These are not toys," the drill master says, his voice low enough that only you can hear. From this day forward, your training will draw blood, perhaps your own, perhaps your opponent's. Learn quickly or bleed excessively. The weight of the real weapons surprises you. The balance is different, more precise, more deadly. The wooden models suddenly seem like children's playthings in comparison. You test the edge of the Cephos with your thumb, feeling its sharpness even with the lightest touch. Form up. The command echoes across the training ground. Combat pairs. Your heart pounds as you're matched against another recruit who's been training for the same 6 months. He looks as nervous as you feel, his knuckles white around the grip of his sword. The drill master gives the signal, and you begin circling each other, shields raised. The first exchange of blows is tentative, neither of you wanting to be the first to draw blood. Then your opponent lunges, his sword sliding past your shield edge. You pivot, just as you've been trained, but not quickly enough. A sharp pain lances up your arm as his blade opens a gash across your forearm, just below where your armor ends. Warm blood trickles down to your wrist, but there's no time to acknowledge it. You counter, muscle memory taking over where conscious thought falters. The exchange lasts less than a minute before the drill master calls a halt. First blood to Demetrios, he announces, nodding to your opponent. Then glancing at your arm, report to the physician after drills. That needs stitching. You continue training through the morning, the cut on your arm stinging with every movement. By midday, when you finally visit the physician, your sleeve is stiff with dried blood. The old man cleaning instruments barely looks up as you enter. Another first day of real weapons, eh? He muses, threading a bone needle with horsehair. Hold still, this will hurt. He's right. The needle pierces your skin 5 times, drawing the wound closed. No numbing herbs, no wine to dull the pain, just the sharp reality of military medicine. When he finishes, he slaps your shoulder. Keep it clean. Back to training now. The afternoon sessions focus on scenario training. What happens if your primary weapon fails? If your sarissa breaks, a common occurrence in battle, you must instantly transition to your shifos without breaking formation. If the formation itself breaks, you need close combat techniques that keep you alive long enough to regroup. The sarissa is your bride, bellows the drill master as you practice rapid weapon transitions, but the shifos is your mistress. Neglect either, and they'll betray you when you need them most. One passes a worn coin to his partner, another hands over a small carved wooden lion. What are they doing? You ask the recruit beside you. Exchange tokens, he explains quietly. They return them to each other afterward, but only if both survive the exercise without serious injury. It's for luck. You reach into your pouch and find a smooth stone you've carried since leaving home. Without a word, you hand it to your training partner. He nods, understanding the gesture, and gives you a small metal ring in return. The simple ritual creates a bond, a mutual promise to keep each other safe during the dangerous drills ahead. The veterans take time in the evening to teach techniques not covered in formal training. These are the tricks that keep soldiers alive, hard-won knowledge paid for in blood by previous generations. Don't catch a blow straight on your shield, demonstrates a scarred veteran, showing how to angle the shield's surface. Deflect it, let it slide away, save your strength for the counter. Dead men have tired arms. As the weeks pass, blood becomes as common a sight on the training ground as sweat. Minor cuts and bruises are ignored completely. You learn to fight through the pain, to continue your drills despite injuries that would have sent you to bed in your former life. Serious wounds, however, mean removal from training. 3 recruits from your cohort have already been reassigned to support roles after injuries that left them unable to hold a sarissa properly. The battlefield offers no second chances, the drill master reminds you daily. Here, you can bleed and learn. Out there, you bleed and die. Historians still debate whether Macedonian combat training emphasized individual skill or simply conditioned soldiers to maintain formation under stress. From your experience, it seems to be both. You're drilled relentlessly on maintaining your position in the phalanx, while simultaneously developing the individual skills needed when formation inevitably breaks in the chaos of battle. One morning, after nearly 2 months of training with real weapons, you're paired against a veteran soldier for sparring. He's faster than you, stronger, with years more experience. Under normal circumstances, you wouldn't stand a chance. But as he lunges, something clicks in your mind. Your body moves before you can think, executing a perfect shield deflection followed by a swift strike to his sword arm. His weapon clatters to the ground, and for a moment the training area falls silent. The veteran stares at his empty hand, then at you, surprise evident on his weather-beaten face. Slowly, a grudging smile forms. "Well struck," he says, retrieving his sword. "Seems you've been paying attention after all." The drill master witnessed the exchange. His face remains impassive, but you notice him making a mark on his tablet. That afternoon, he addresses your entire unit. "In 3 days, senior officers will inspect this cohort," he announces. "Those who pass will be assigned to companies in the main army, ready to march with King Alexander. Those who fail—" He pauses, his eyes sweeping across the assembled soldiers. "Those who fail will never see battle. They'll spend their service guarding granaries and escorting merchants. Prepare accordingly. That night, as you clean blood from your equipment, some of it yours, some belonging to your training partners, you reflect on how far you've come. 6 months ago, you couldn't properly lift a sarissa. Now you can disarm a veteran soldier. Your body bears the scars of this transformation, a map of cuts, bruises, and calluses that tells the story of your journey from civilian to warrior. Tomorrow brings more training, more blood, more pain. But for the first time, you allow yourself to imagine standing in formation on a real battlefield, your shield locked with your brothers, your sarissa leveled against the enemies of Macedon. The thought no longer terrifies you. Instead, it feels like Destiny 9. The Hypaspist Path, Elite Selection. The training ground falls silent as a commander enters, flanked by 2 officers bearing the distinctive insignia of the Royal Guard. This isn't your usual morning inspection. The commander moves slowly along the ranks, his eyes lingering on certain soldiers before moving on. Rumors have circulated for days that the Hypaspists, the elite shield-bearers of the Macedonian army, need replacements after the last border skirmish. "Stand straight," hisses the veteran beside you. "They're looking for Hypaspist candidates." Your heart rate quickens. The Hypaspists are the elite infantry of Alexander's army, his shock troops, assault specialists, and the flexible link between the rigid phalanx and the swift cavalry. Their reputation precedes them throughout the camp. While you and your brothers form the backbone of the army, the Hypaspists are its striking arm. "Your unit has impressed the senior officers," the commander announces, his voice carrying across the training ground. "Some among you may have what we seek." His eyes scan the assembled soldiers, seeming to measure each man's worth in a single glance. "Those whose names are called will report to the East Field at midday for special assessment. When your name echoes across the training ground, your stomach drops." Several veterans nod approvingly, while others look surprised. 20 names in total are called from your unit, about 1 in 4 men. The regular morning drills proceed as usual, but concentration is impossible. Your mind races with stories you've heard about Hypaspist selection, grueling tests designed to break all but the most exceptional candidates. Midday arrives with merciless summer heat beating down on the East training field. A group of veteran Hypaspists wait there, their armor polished to a mirror shine despite the sweltering conditions. Their posture, even at rest, speaks of disciplined power. The commander from the morning stands before them, arms crossed. "Strip to your tunics," he orders without preamble. "Then full armor on. You have 2 minutes. What follows is unlike any training you've experienced before." The special trials begin with a timed armor drill, donning full battle gear from a standing start. Some recruits fumble with buckles and straps, elimination beginning before the real tests even commence. Those who finish in time are immediately ordered to run a full mile in that same heavy armor. You push yourself beyond what you thought possible, lungs burning as you maintain position near the front of the group. 4 recruits drop out, unable to complete the run. There's no rest before the next challenge. Weapon drills with both sarissa and sword, switching between them at random commands. Your arms tremble with fatigue, but you force them to comply. Every movement must be perfect. The Hypaspists serve as the crucial link between the phalanx and cavalry, explains the commander between drills. You must master both the discipline of the phalanx and the adaptability of the horsemen, rigid yet flexible. Steadfast yet swift. This isn't merely motivational speech, it's established military doctrine. The Hypaspists typically hold the right wing of the infantry line, the most vulnerable position where enemy forces typically concentrate their strongest troops. They protect the phalanx's exposed flank while providing a connection point for cavalry maneuvers. Their tactical versatility makes them indispensable for Alexander's complex battle strategies. The most punishing test comes when you're paired against multiple opponents. 3 veteran soldiers circle you, attacking in coordination while you defend with shield and practice sword. The purpose isn't to win, that would be impossible, but to demonstrate how long you can survive against overwhelming odds. You manage to hold out longer than most, using the shield techniques you've perfected over months of training, though you still end up face down in the dirt when they finally overwhelm you. Throughout the afternoon, the selection process reveals the Army's true structure more clearly than any training manual could. Different roles require different attributes. The phalanx needs disciplined soldiers who can maintain formation under pressure. The cavalry demands quick reflexes and independent decision-making. The Hypaspis must somehow combine both, plus the stamina to fight in any terrain under any conditions. By sunset, only 12 of the original 20 remain. Your tunic is soaked through with sweat, your muscles quivering with exhaustion. Blood trickles from a split lip where a shield rim caught you during close combat drills. The commander walks along the line of surviving candidates, examining each man carefully. "Final assessment tomorrow at dawn," he announces. "Be ready." As you turn to leave, your drill master appears at your elbow, pulling you aside out of earshot from the others. "They're considering you seriously," he says, his voice unusually free of its typical harshness. Your performance in the weapon transition drills caught their attention. After months of anonymous training, months of being just another faceless recruit in the formation, this recognition feels surreal. "I didn't think I was ready," you admit. The drill master's mouth tightens. "That's why you are. The fools who think they're ready never are." Historians still argue about the exact criteria used to select Hypaspists and whether they were drawn primarily from noble families or based purely on merit. Some scholars contend that Hypaspists came exclusively from Macedonian aristocracy, citing their proximity to the king in battle formations. Others point to evidence suggesting they were chosen solely for combat prowess, regardless of background. The truth likely lies somewhere between. Alexander valued both birthright and battlefield skill, but ultimately prized results above all. Dawn brings the final trials. The tests focus less on physical strength now, and more on quick thinking and adaptability. You're given complicated tactical problems to solve under pressure. How to defend a river crossing with limited forces, how to assault a walled position, how to extract a surrounded unit. After each scenario, the officers confer, making notes on wax tablets. By mid-morning, the commander calls you all to attention. The surviving candidates stand in formation, bodies aching but spirits lifted by having made it this far. 3 of you will join the Hypaspis Corps, he announces. The rest return to your units with our respect. You were worthy opponents. When your name is called first, a rush of emotions floods through you. Pride, disbelief, and an unexpected pang of loss. Looking at the faces of your unit brothers watching from the sidelines, you see mixed reactions. They cheer and pound their shields in celebration, but beneath the congratulations lies something else. Your path now diverges from theirs. The bonds forged through shared suffering will remain, but your daily lives will follow different trajectories. That evening, your original unit holds an impromptu celebration for the 3 selected men. Wine flows more freely than usual, songs are sung and stories exchanged, yet beneath the festivities runs an undercurrent of envy carefully hidden behind smiles and congratulatory embraces. The Hypaspists receive better equipment, better rations, and most importantly, better positions in battle, the positions that bring glory, recognition, and spoils. "Don't forget us when you're dining with the king," jokes one of your tent mates, punching your shoulder. "As if I could," you reply, meaning it sincerely. Tomorrow you'll report to your new unit, beginning specialized training that will prepare you for the most dangerous missions in Alexander's campaigns. Your path to glory now runs separate from your original brothers in arms, but you carry with you everything they taught you, both the official lessons and the countless unspoken ones that kept you alive this far. As the celebration continues around you, You silently promise yourself that whatever honors might come, you'll remember where your journey began, in the dust of the training ground, among the men who helped transform you from recruit to soldier. The camp explodes into frantic activity, as if someone kicked over an anthill. Horns blast across the training grounds, while officers shout orders that send men scrambling in every direction. Something big is happening. A veteran grabs your shoulder as he rushes past. "Clean everything, twice," he barks. The king is coming, Alexander himself. Your stomach tightens into a knot. After nearly a year of relentless training, you'll finally stand before the man whose name already echoes across the known world. Your hands shake slightly as you polish your armor to a mirror shine. The bronze gleams in the morning light as you check every strap and buckle. Nothing can be out of place today. By mid-morning, your unit stands in perfect formation on the main parade ground. You've never seen the camp look this organized. Even the dirt seems cleaner. You maintain the proper distance from the men on either side, your sarissa held at the exact prescribed angle. The weight of the pike, once so burdensome, now feels natural in your calloused hands. "Don't lock your knees," whispers the soldier beside you. Men faint that way. Alexander won't tolerate weakness. Rumors about the king's temperament have circulated through camp for weeks. Some veterans claim he's brilliant but volatile, capable of extraordinary generosity one moment and terrifying rage the next. They say he once executed a commander for allowing his unit to break formation during a training exercise. Whether true or not, these stories have everyone on edge. "He knows every military manual by heart," a soldier behind you murmurs. "Can spot a shield held 1 inch too low from 50 paces. I heard he makes men run in full armor until they collapse, then promotes the last man standing," adds another. The atmosphere changes as Alexander's entourage approaches the training ground. Even veteran commanders, men who've faced death countless times, straighten their postures and nervously check their equipment one last time. Your drill master, normally the embodiment of confidence, adjusts his sword belt 3 times in as many minutes. You notice something odd as you wait. The veteran beside you bends down briefly, apparently adjusting his sandal. When he stands again, he catches your questioning glance. "Lucky coin," he whispers. "In my sandal." Looking around discreetly, you realize many soldiers are doing the same, placing small tokens in their footwear before the royal inspection. Some slip coins beneath the leather straps, others tuck in carved wooden figures or polished stones. It's a quiet superstition among the ranks, a belief that these personal talismans bring good fortune and the king's favor during inspections. Trumpets announce Alexander's arrival. The sound silences the entire training ground instantly. You expect a grand procession, but instead, a small group of men approaches on foot. You scan their faces, wondering which is the king, then you see him. Alexander walks at the center of the group, and despite being of average height, he somehow dominates everyone around him. He's younger than you expected, not yet 30, with clean-shaven features that contrast with the bearded faces of his commanders. His hair falls in leonine waves, and though you can't see his eyes clearly from this distance, you sense their intensity. The king wears armor similar to what the officers use, but with subtle differences that mark his royal status. It's well used, but immaculately maintained. This is no pampered monarch who watches battles from distant hills. This is a commander who leads from the front. Alexander moves down the lines with his entourage, occasionally stopping to question a soldier or commander about training methods and readiness. His voice carries surprisingly well, clear and confident, with none of the affected tones you'd expect from nobility. He speaks directly, expecting direct answers. As he approaches your section, your heart pounds so loudly you're certain the men beside you must hear it. The king passes just 3 soldiers away, close enough that you can now see his eyes, one blue, one brown, according to the whispered legends. Whether the heterochromia is as dramatic as rumors suggest, you can't tell, but his gaze is undeniably penetrating. Then suddenly, he's standing before you. Alexander's eyes scan you from head to foot, taking in every detail of your stance, your equipment, your readiness. You feel completely exposed, as if he can see through your carefully polished armor to the nervous recruit beneath. The moment stretches into what feels like eternity. Your Sarisa, he says directly to you. How many men has it killed? The question catches you off guard. Your mouth goes dry. None yet, my king, you answer truthfully. But it's ready when you command. A faint smile touches the corner of his mouth. He nods once and moves on. You release a breath you didn't realize you were holding. Historians still debate whether Alexander personally selected soldiers for his campaigns or delegated this entirely to his commanders. Some scholars believe he knew thousands of men by name and directly chose who would accompany him into battle. Others contend that practical necessity forced him to rely on his officers' judgment for most personnel decisions. Whatever the truth, his personal inspection of the troops was no mere ceremony. It was a critical assessment of the army's readiness. After completing his inspection, Alexander returns to the center of the training ground. The commanders gather around him, conversing briefly. Then the king turns to address the assembled troops. Show me the syntagma formation, he commands. Full combat spacing. Your unit moves instantly, executing the complex maneuver you've practiced hundreds of times. 16 ranks deep, 16 men across. The formation takes shape with the precision of a well-oiled machine. Shields locked together, sarissas level at 5 different angles, creating the bristling front that enemies find so terrifying. Not a word is spoken. Each man knows exactly where to stand, how to move, when to lower his pike. Alexander walks around the formation, studying it from every angle. You maintain your position perfectly, your arms steady despite the weight of your weapons. The months of relentless training culminate in this moment, a flawless demonstration before the greatest military mind of the age. Hold position, Alexander calls, then orders a complex series of maneuvers. Your unit responds as one body, turning, advancing, retreating, and reforming without breaking cohesion. The king watches intently, occasionally conferring with his commanders. Finally, he signals for the demonstration to end. A thin smile crosses his face as he addresses the assembled troops. The preparations are complete, he announces, his voice carrying across the training ground. In 10 days, we march east. Those who have completed their training will join us. The rest will remain behind to continue their instruction. A current of excitement runs through the ranks. After months of training, you'll finally see real combat. You'll march with Alexander himself against the Persian Empire. The weight of this realization settles on your shoulders, heavier than any armor, more significant than any training exercise. The world awaits us, Alexander continues, his voice taking on a quality that makes even hardened veterans lean forward to catch every word. Prepare yourselves not just for battle, but for glory that will echo through the ages. As he departs with his entourage, the rigid discipline of the ranks gives way to excited murmurs. Your unit will be among those marching east. The endless drills, the painful corrections, the blisters and bruises and exhaustion, all of it was preparation for what comes next. That night, as you ready your equipment for the coming campaign, the veteran who showed you the lucky coin in his sandal sits beside you. You spoke well to the king, he says, nodding approvingly. Now we'll see if you fight as well as you talk. You smile grimly, checking the edge of your sword one more time. In 10 days, your real test begins. 11. March orders, the campaign begins. The horns sound at dawn, but this time it's different. The familiar training signals have been replaced by the battle call. 3 long blasts that echo across the camp, sending a chill down your spine despite the morning warmth. Your heart races as you recognize what this means. This isn't another drill. This is it. Your first campaign has begun. You quickly gather your belongings, now few enough to carry on your back, and join the organized chaos of the camp. The excitement is palpable as soldiers hurry to their assembly points. Veterans move with purposeful efficiency, while newer recruits like yourself try to mimic their confidence. After nearly a year of preparation, the real test begins. 3rd Phalanx, 6th Syntagma, 4th File, Position 8, calls out an officer consulting a wax tablet. That's you. No longer a nameless recruit, but a soldier with an assigned place in the greatest army in the world. Your position in the marching order isn't just a location. It's an identity, a responsibility, a place in the machine. The complex numerical designation tells you exactly where you belong in the massive formation, that will soon stretch across miles of countryside. As you locate your position, a grizzled veteran with a scar running from his temple to his jaw finds you. He looks you up and down with the critical eye of someone who's survived multiple campaigns. "First march?" he asks, though he clearly knows the answer. You nod, trying to project confidence. The veteran snorts. "Listen carefully, then. The real enemy isn't who you think. It's not the Persians, not yet. First, you'll fight the road, the sun, your own feet, and the water that will make your guts turn to liquid fire." He taps your water skin. "Sip this slowly. When we find a clean stream, fill it completely, no matter how tired you are. Add a splash of wine when you can. Men who drink carelessly die before ever seeing the enemy." Other veterans join in, sharing warnings about the realities ahead. They speak of endless marching that grinds feet into bloody pulps inside sandals. They describe the slow starvation that comes when supply lines stretch too thin. They tell stories of diseases that sweep through camps, killing more soldiers than any enemy spear. And they whisper about the constant threat of ambush, mountain tribes, or Persian scouts who strike when you're at your most vulnerable. "The battlefield is almost a relief," says one, cleaning dirt from under his fingernails with a small knife. "At least there you can see what's trying to kill you." Before you can fully process these grim warnings, the quartermaster's assistants arrive, distributing campaign equipment. You're already carrying your weapons, sarissa, sword, and shield, but now receive additional items essential for the journey ahead. A shovel head that attaches to your sarissa shaft for digging entrenchments. A small bronze cooking pot, a fire striker. Extra sandal leather for repairs. A whetstone for keeping your blade sharp. A woolen cloak for cold nights. Each item carefully selected through generations of military refinement. The quartermaster himself, a man with the harried look of someone responsible for too many lives, stops at your file. "You," he points directly at you and three others. "Baggage detail, first rotation. Report to the supply carts." You open your mouth to protest. Didn't you train as a hypaspist? Shouldn't you be with your combat unit? But the veteran beside you subtly shakes his head in warning. "Everyone rotates through baggage duty," the quartermaster explains, correctly reading your expression. "Even the king's companions take their turn. You'll rejoin your combat position tomorrow. For now, you help keep the army moving." This, you discover, is the hidden reality of Alexander's army. Everyone serves multiple functions. The rigid specialization of the battlefield dissolves during the march into a fluid system where all contribute to the army's movement. It's a practical solution to the immense logistical challenge of moving thousands of men across vast distances. Alexander's army could cover 19 to 20 miles daily while maintaining combat readiness, an unprecedented feat of logistics and endurance. The average army of this era might manage 10 to 12 miles before exhaustion made them vulnerable. This speed was a strategic advantage as crucial as any weapon, allowing the Macedonians to outmaneuver enemies who couldn't conceive of such rapid movement. From your position with the baggage train, you witness the full scope of the army's movement for the first time. Your training in formation suddenly makes practical sense as thousands of men, animals, and supply carts begin moving in coordinated waves. The cavalry scouts range ahead, testing the path. Behind them, the hypaspis and companion infantry, then the phalanx units in their rectangular formations. Support troops, engineers, and supply units follow in their designated positions. The organization is as beautiful as it is functional, a living demonstration of Philip's military genius. No unit moves too quickly and opens gaps. None lags and creates bottlenecks. The entire army flows like water across the landscape, compressing to pass through narrow valleys, expanding across open plains. "It took Philip 20 years to perfect this," says a veteran supply officer, noticing your amazement. Before him, armies were mobs that happened to march in the same direction. He created this. Historians still argue about the exact size of Alexander's expeditionary force and how much equipment each soldier typically carried. Some accounts place the army at 40,000 infantry and 5,000 cavalry, while others suggest smaller numbers, perhaps 30,000 total. What's clear is that each soldier carried at least 60 to 80 pounds of equipment. weapons, armor, tools, and supplies. A burden that would crush untrained men, but felt manageable after months of conditioning. By midday, you've settled into the march. The sun beats down mercilessly, but you've learned to manage the heat. Your muscles, once screaming in protest at such exertion, now perform their duty with resigned efficiency. The weight on your back feels almost natural. You are a machine designed for movement, for endurance, for war. As the column passes over a hill, you catch sight of the army's full extent for the first time. A massive serpent of men and animals stretching across the countryside, banners fluttering above the dust. The sight steals your breath. This is what you're part of now. This unstoppable force that will reshape the world. When the camp is finally established that evening, you collapse beside a cooking fire, muscles trembling with fatigue, but oddly satisfied. The journey has begun. Your transformation is complete. Thinking about the training camp, asks a soldier who spread his bedroll nearby. He nods toward the eastern horizon, the direction from which you've come. You realize that you have been. The training ground that once seemed like a prison now feels like a distant home, the place where you were forged into what you are now. As darkness falls, you think about the gates of the training camp you marched through that morning. When you entered those gates a year ago, you were a civilian playing at being a soldier. Leaving them today, you are a weapon, honed, tempered, and ready for use. The journey from one side to the other has remade you entirely. In the fading light, you imagine new recruits arriving at those same gates, looking at your departing column with the same mixture of awe and terror you once felt. They cannot possibly understand what awaits them, just as you couldn't have comprehended the man you would become. Tomorrow brings another march, another 20 miles closer to glory or death. But tonight, you are simply a soldier of Macedon, watching the stars appear above a camp of thousands, feeling, perhaps for the first time, that you truly belong. Conclusion. As you march beside your brothers in arms, you realize how completely you've transformed. The civilian who stumbled into camp a year ago is gone. In his place stands a soldier of Macedon, disciplined, hardened, and deadly. The training that once felt impossible now flows through your veins like blood. The sarissa that once felt unwieldy now feels like an extension of your arm. The pain that once seemed unbearable now feels like an old friend. You carry more than weapons and supplies as you follow Alexander eastward. You carry Philip's vision, Alexander's ambition, and the weight of history itself, a small but vital part of a military revolution that will forever change the world. Tonight we're time traveling to 1565 Malta, a tiny island on the brink of devastation. The Ottomans are bringing everything they've got: cannon fire, massive siege towers, and tens of thousands of soldiers ready to wipe you off the map. Here's the twist. Your supplies are almost gone, your wells are poisoned, and, you guessed it, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Oh, and share where you're watching from and the local time. You might just have it easier than they did. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Waking up in the shadow of war. Imagine waking up to the faint echoes of cannon fire drifting across the horizon, just loud enough to jolt you from a restless sleep, your heart pounding before you've even swung your legs onto the cold stone floor. The chill underfoot bites sharply, a reminder that the thin straw mattress and threadbare blanket you slept on did little to shield you from the damp Maltese night. It's May 1565, and you're not exactly starting your day with a stretch and a yawn. Outside, soldiers are already grunting and shouting, their voices tense with the knowledge of what lies ahead. As usual, your morning kicks off with the promise of annihilation. You're a knight of Malta, and the Ottoman war machine is knocking at your door, louder and closer with every passing moment. The truth hits you before you've even fully shaken off sleep. That distant thudding in the air isn't just noise. It's the prelude to another day of survival. You shuffle over to a small basin of water and splash your face, the cool liquid making you wince. It wasn't the enemy, it was your side. A tactical choice made to deny the Ottomans any clean supply. In theory, it seemed like a brilliant plan. In practice, it means that the water you're staring at might be as dangerous as the scimitars waiting to split your skull. Let that sink in. The greatest threat to your survival right now might be in your own cup. The air in your quarters is stale, thick with the lingering smell of sweat and the heavier, more sour stench of fear, the kind that nothing can quite scrub out. It clings to your skin like armor, though not quite the kind you'd actually want. Outside your window you can hear it all, the shuffle of boots on stone, the creak of wagon wheels, the relentless pounding of sledgehammers as the fortifications are reinforced yet again. It's as if everyone knows the walls won't hold much longer, but can't quite bring themselves to stop trying. The Ottomans brought one of the largest armadas since antiquity, 193 ships strong, all crammed with soldiers, cannon, and enough artillery to shatter this tiny island into shards. Just yesterday, you stood and watched those ships line up along the coastline. The sails looked like storm clouds on an otherwise clear day, a fleet so massive it felt like the sea itself was disappearing beneath it. Destruction ready to dock, you strap on your sword belt. The hilt is warm and worn smooth, a comforting sensation in a wholly uncomforting world. This sword's been your companion for years. The scratches and dents tell stories you'd rather not relive. But if this siege continues, today might be the last chapter it writes. You run your fingers over the pommel absent-mindedly. This is as close to calm as the morning will get. And then, almost ceremonially, you pull your gaze toward the south. Somewhere past those ships, beyond the glint of sunlight cutting off the waves, lies the rest of Europe. That's who you're fighting for, supposedly. This isn't about just keeping Malta safe. This is about stopping the Ottomans before they march up through Sicily and mainland Italy. Or at least, that's what you tell yourself. Historians still argue over whether Suleiman the Magnificent's push here was a calculated step for European domination or just a giant tantrum thrown out of revenge for the knights sieging Ottoman coasts years earlier. The larger reasons don't much matter at this particular moment, though. Not when you're standing here trying not to lose your nerve. Your day begins with prayer, as always. You make your way down to the narrow chapel. The air down here is cooler, but carries an unsettling sense of stillness that contrasts sharply with the murmurs of men echoing through the stone chamber. The Grand Master himself, Jean Parisot de Valette, leads the service, his raspy voice cutting through the thick silence. His presence here at least helps stiffen your spine. Though 70 years old, he carries himself like a man carved out of granite, flaws and cracks visible but unbroken, unyielding. As you kneel for the ritual words, you can only think, is this the last time you'll bow your head like this? Will this moment be the one seared into your memory as your last act of devotion before you collapse on the walls above, felled by an arrow or powder blast? The feeling is less spiritual and more final. Like you're signing the bottom of a contract and trying not to read the fee details. The faintest vibration runs through the chapel floor. You feel it first in your knees, buzzing faintly until it passes through your whole body. A second later, the muffled explosion follows. The Ottomans have begun their morning round of cannon fire, and this one just hit somewhere uncomfortably close. Dust shakes loose from the stones in the ceiling, landing in soft little puffs all around. You exchange quick glances with the knights on either side of you. One raises an eyebrow, another shrugs. It's that false bravado people wear when they'd rather not show how much they're panicking. The prayer continues. It has to. Once you've made your peace, or at least pretended to, you march up to the main hall. The energy is frenetic, frantic. A messenger barrels past, nearly knocking over a water barrel, yelling orders so fast his words blur together. People shout after him for clarity, but he's long gone up the staircase. You look around and see soldiers fastening their chainmail, smiths pounding out armor reinforcements they'll barely have time to fit. There's even a boy barely old enough to hold a weapon trying to wedge himself into a breastplate that looks half his size. It clangs awkwardly against his kneecaps as he stumbles forward. Supplies are dangerously low, a fact made painfully clear as you pass the food stores. Nothing more than sacks of half-rotten grain remain, their sour smell wafting through the air like an open warning. This won't last much longer. When the Ottomans took this campaign seriously, 5 years of planning and one of the largest combined forces ever assembled, you wonder briefly how long you can hold out with what you're working with. The waters off Malta may be blue and bright, but standing here inside these walls, everything feels gray, dense, and unbearably heavy. You find yourself heading to the walls before you're even fully aware of it. Something about the pull of duty overrides every shred of common sense. As you climb the stairs to the battlements, you hear the sound of distant marching, drums keeping time, boots crunching gravel. It's them, the Janissaries probably. They're elite forces bred for this chaos. The Ottomans don't do subtle. You adjust your armor one last time. The leather straps dig into your shoulders. The plates never really sit right. It's not exactly custom tailoring after all. But you don't have time to complain. That distant marching sound is now paired with the metallic whine of siege equipment being dragged closer. A cry comes down the line, breaking the tension. "Fort St. Elmo's taking fire," someone shouts. You clench your teeth and grip your sword tighter. It's not just cannonballs and collapsing stone that Fort St. Elmo is up against. The enemy is relentless, and the walls are weakening. The Knights of St. John stand their ground, ready to defend Malta to their last breath. Elmo's infantry will have to deal with. You've heard the stories already, some true, some exaggerated. The Turks brought all their toys, from massive siege towers to incendiary weapons that can burn everything, right down to the stone itself. Looking out across the bay, you can see more cannons than you've ever imagined firing smoke signals into the clear morning, each impacting with a hollow, ground-shaking thud. Above you, the Maltese sun glares high and indifferent, completely detached from the suffering unraveling below. Another explosion rattles through the fort. Somewhere nearby, someone cries out, a short, sharp yell followed by silence. You try not to let your nerves unravel, but it's not easy. Every step forward feels futile, every decision tinged with a crushing sense of inevitability, but you soldier on. You have no choice. You make your way toward an awaiting officer, saluting grimly. Orders are barked at you, and while you barely register the meaning of the words, you nod all the same. Another cannonball screams through the air, striking stone. Dust swirls upward in the aftermath like an ominous cloud, and as you watch it drift, you set your shoulders back and move toward your place on the front lines. You're barely 2 hours into your day, and already the question gnaws at you. How much longer can we last? The island they didn't want. Malta wasn't supposed to be a prize. It was a hand-me-down, a consolation prize dressed up as strategy. And yet, here you are, standing guard over its sun-drenched rocks like it's the center of the universe. Funny, isn't it? This little patch of land, just 17 miles long, is all that's holding back one of the largest empires the world has ever seen. What a cruel twist of fate. Back in 1530, when the Spanish gave Malta to your order, it must have felt a bit underwhelming. After all, you're a Knight Hospitaller, part of the same order that used to rule the mighty fortress of Rhodes. Malta wasn't Rhodes. It wasn't fertile, it wasn't green, and it definitely wasn't glamorous. Barren, sun-scorched, rocky, pick any grim adjective and you've got it. Legend has it that Charles V tossed this dusty little island your way alongside Gozo and Tripoli, as if to say, well, it's better than nothing. The dream of reclaiming Rhodes still lingered among some of the older knights, and many of them saw Malta as just that, a step down. A stone in their shoe, and let's not forget the infamous annual falcon. Yeah, the knights had to pay rent for Malta in the form of a single Maltese falcon presented to Charles V or his viceroy every year. You can't make this stuff up. A whole island for the price of a bird. It's the medieval equivalent of handing over a Ferrari in exchange for a coffee punch card. The symbolism wasn't exactly subtle. But despite the falcon gimmick, you and your brothers got to work, piecing together rudimentary defenses amid the cliffs and limestone they'd eventually call fortifications. Still, Malta had something Rhodes didn't: position. Look around at the geography. Yes, it's uninspiring at first, but squint a little, and it starts to make sense. You're perched like a bird between Europe and Africa, a crucial link in trade and warfare across the Mediterranean. South of Sicily, west of the Barbary coast, and not too far from the Ottoman hubs like Tripoli and Algiers. It's no sprawling empire, but it's a hinge, the kind of choke point that turns warships off course and stifles supply lines. When you think about it like that, Malta starts to feel a little more valuable. Not good farming land, sure, but as a launch pad for fleets and a blockade against enemies. Now it's interesting. Of course, the Ottoman Empire saw it that way too. They weren't blind to Malta's potential as a springboard into southern Europe. Some even whispered that if Malta fell, Sicily wouldn't be far behind. And after that, well, let's just say you wouldn't have to squint too hard to imagine Ottoman galleys docked in Naples. This battle wasn't just about Malta anymore. It was a chessboard, and this rocky island was tipping the balance of power. The funny thing is, no one really wanted this kind of attention. The knights weren't eager to play the star role in what was shaping up to be a continental showdown. They weren't exactly equipped to handle. Malta wasn't brimming with resources. It wasn't Casanova, North Africa. It was a humble island that thrived on salt, trade routes, and good old-fashioned stubbornness. But when the Ottomans crushed Rhodes, they made sure the Hospitallers wouldn't just lick their wounds quietly. Malta was a thorn but also a dare, an open wound dangling not far from Ottoman territory. Taking it was both tempting and deeply inconvenient. The stakes grew overnight. Now, Malta wasn't just a rock. It was a symbol, a statement. Losing it would be humiliating for your order and invigorating for Sultan Suleiman and his empire. But keeping it, that's going to come at a steep cost. One the island isn't built for. You glance around and remember the stories. You poisoned your own wells and burned your crops, and not because you're careless, but because you're desperate. Better to starve yourselves than let the enemy use what little the island offers. How grim is that? This place wasn't made to sustain its defenders, let alone its invaders. It's dry, it's brittle, and it doesn't yield anything easily. Survive here long enough, and it feels less like a trophy and more like a punishment. Some scholars still scratch their heads over Suleiman's decision to take Malta. For an empire his size, was it worth the effort? It wouldn't exactly be a surprise move, considering how close the island was to Ottoman borders. But if you listen to certain historians, they argue it wasn't about location at all, more about pride. A personal grudge between the Sultan and your order after the savagery on Rhodes. Did he see Malta as a military checkmate, or simply as a statement to Europe that no fortress could stand against him? It's one of those debates where you realize history doesn't always offer a clean answer. You scramble up a rocky incline, heading for one of the watch points overlooking the coast. Sweat makes your tunic stick to your skin, the scratchy wool rubbing at the back of your neck. Breathing heavily, you finally reach that familiar perch, where chunks of unfinished stone still sit piled up from fortification work too rushed to complete. The knights haven't had the luxury of time lately. You lean against the half-finished wall, gaze outward, and there they are. Ottoman ships looming larger than when you spotted them yesterday. From up here, they're not specks on the horizon anymore. They're taking shape. Gliding closer, almost casually powerful, as if they know they'll claim this place eventually. And frankly, you hate how unsettling that confidence looks. Commanders always talk about the weight of history. You're supposed to stand firm because your island is the front line of something bigger. Sicily is watching, Spain is watching, the Pope himself is crossing his fingers in Rome that this place holds. But as you stare down at that fleet slowly rearranging itself, history feels like a terrible excuse for what's expected of you. The cannon smoke still curls faintly in some spots, test shots probably. Then there's the faint shuffle of activity from their main galleys. Dinghies ferry groups of soldiers to and from the larger ships, their blades of oars moving in sinister rhythm across the water. You tighten your grip on the sword at your side as if holding it will somehow keep your hands from shaking. It doesn't. A shout pulls your attention back to the barracks. A messenger, wide-eyed and drenched in sweat, is sprinting full tilt across the narrow plaza. Fort Saint. Elmo, he gasps, pointing though no one needs him to. Your stomach knots. Of course, everyone knows that's the first point of attack. It's isolated from the rest of the defenses, separated by water, and once it falls, Valletta will be easier to breach. That's the difference between a fortress and a domino, after all. And it looks like they've picked the first to tip over. You gather your things quickly. The fort is close, maybe a mile trek, but the path is more goat trail than road, and it doesn't help when your legs are already aching from this morning's drills. One step at a time, one foot in front of the other. The rocks crunch beneath your boots, and every sharp edge underfoot reminds you that this isn't conquering hero stuff. This is survival, pure and unforgiving. Every labored breath of yours mingles with the soldiers around you, who are doing their best not to complain, not to give voice to the thing you're all wondering. Will it hold? Or is this where the Ottoman advance begins? Reaching the fort seems to take hours, each steep switchback and loose cobblestone another small annoyance that adds to the bigger headache. But when you finally see its silhouette rising at the end of the path, curved against the glinting shoreline, a strange sense of calm comes over you. For a moment, silence replaces the distant boom of cannon fire. There's a certainty here, as if nothing bad's happened yet. You know better. If anything, this quiet moment feels like the universe pausing, catching its breath before pushing the chaos forward. Fort St. Elmo, the first line of defense. It's a fortress, but it feels more like a tomb. At least that's the vibe you're getting as you arrive at Fort St. Elmo. Everything about this place feels like it's holding its breath. The walls are splintered, jagged, and crumbling in ways that remind you of old bones. The charred wood and shattered stone crunch beneath your boots. It's not just debris, it's evidence. Evidence that this fort, your first line of defense, is being chewed apart piece by piece. Welcome to Fort St. Elmo, where your chances of survival are slim to none. You step through what counts as the main entrance, though gate feels like a generous term for what's left of it. Siege after siege has blasted chunks of it into warped splinters and rubble piles so high, you're already imagining how difficult it's going to be to move. The Ottomans have been hammering at this place for a week now. Cannon fire rains down so relentlessly that you're used to flinching more at silence than the sound of explosions. Every boom in the distance is almost comforting. It hasn't hit you, so there's that. Inside, the fort might as well be a ship taking on water. People are running, some carrying buckets, others hauling barrels that look heavier than the men lifting them. At a glance, you realize this place isn't a fortress anymore. It's chaos with walls. Masons dart back and forth, futility dripping from every movement as they try to patch walls that will inevitably be obliterated again by nightfall. Watching them work is almost theatrical, like trying to plug a dam with a spoon. Nearby, someone hauls a plank up the side of what used to be one of the main ramparts. They lash it in place with a strip of what you hope is leather, or maybe you don't. It doesn't matter. You just instinctively know this patch job won't hold. They know it too. But what else is there to do? That plank, that stitch of leather, feels like a metaphor for everything happening around you. They're moving the tower closer, someone shouts. A corporal, maybe. His voice cracks as he points toward the horizon. Sure enough, you spot it. A massive, hulking siege tower creeping toward the front lines. It looks unnatural, defiant even, somehow pushing its way over uneven terrain while keeping its balance despite its height. It's the kind of thing you'd almost admire if it weren't specifically designed to kill you. Siege towers are bad news, but this one's worse. Resistant to fire, covered in thick leather sheets dampened by internal water tanks, it's the kind of monstrosity that gives commanders nightmares. Sharpshooters are already lining its upper levels, bows drawn, their arrows tipped with fire. You've heard stories. This is the kind of weapon that doesn't just breach walls. It demoralizes anyone within view of it. Basically, you. But here's where it gets weird, or clever depending on your point of view. The knights were ready for something like this. Someone had the foresight to hide a cannon within the walls. You'd almost laugh at how ridiculous it sounds. A hidden cannon, primed and loaded with chain shot, sitting right here under everyone's noses. Chain shot isn't pretty. It's two metal balls connected by a segment of chain designed to spin wildly through the air and tear everything in its path to shreds. If it works, and that's a big if, it'll destroy the tower in one devastating shot. Men rush to position it along a gap in the fort's defenses, muscles straining to roll it into place. You can't look away, partially because you want to see what happens next, but mostly because the tower isn't stopping. As anticipation builds, someone on the ramparts shouts about flanking attacks. Great, just what you wanted, more Ottomans. It's not like you're already barely holding the fort together while cannons dismantle it brick by brick. You turn to see a cluster of janissaries, the Ottoman Empire's elite infantry unit, pushing forward through the smoke at the tower's base. These guys are the real deal, disciplined to the point of brutality, and they're as recognizable as your own brothers in arms. If they're here, you know you're in trouble. The chain shot better live up to the hype. Historians still argue whether focusing on Fort St. Elmo was a strategic mistake. The Ottomans had the numbers, but the Knights of St. John held the fort with a tenacity that was nothing short of miraculous. The siege lasted a month, and by the end the fort was a smoking ruin, but the Knights still held it. The chain shot, a devastating weapon that could rip through the Ottoman ships, was their last hope. Elmo was the Turks' grand blunder. It's true that the fort is isolated, cut off from the rest of your defenses by stretches of water, which means resupplying is an absolute nightmare. Defending it almost feels counterproductive. And yet, here you are, standing your ground on the one outpost that should have been your weakest link. The problem for the Ottomans is that their attack hasn't gone remotely as planned. So far, they've lost over 6,000 men, including their commander Dragut. Each casualty eats away at their momentum, and even though the fort is barely standing, it's bleeding them dry. Oh, Dragut. The man was practically a legend. Corsair, commander, ruthless tactician. His name carried weight all across the Mediterranean, feared wherever it went. That is until now. Word in the trenches is that Dragut was taken out not by a heroic last stand or some divine intervention, but by his own troops. A misfire on one of their cannons ricocheted chunks of a trench wall back into him, shattering his skull in one fateful instant. It's almost absurd, isn't it? A lifetime of blood-soaked conquest brought to an end by sloppy execution. His loss, though, is your gain. The Ottomans have lost their cutting edge, the spark that made them the bogeyman of Europe. The tension near the cannon is thick enough to cut through, and then the moment arrives. The cannon bellows its reply to the siege tower, the chain shot exploding outward with unbridled fury. You shield your ears and your face from the impact as bits of hot metal ricochet against the stonework around you. When you open your eyes, the siege tower is in ruins, its timbers splintered, sharpshooters hurled from its heights onto the rocky earth below. Smoke and dust fill the space left behind, and it takes a moment to register the shouting. It's your men, they're cheering. Somehow, amidst the rubble and chaos, they've managed not just to hold the line, but to throw the Ottomans a major setback. For now. The sweetness of victory is fleeting, though. Before the ash even settles, orders come down that you're to take position on the ramparts. Another wave of janissaries is advancing, and cannon or no cannon, it'll come down to hand-to-hand combat before nightfall. By the time you climb the steps to the walls, your throat feels raw from the smoke, your palms sticky with sweat despite the rough grip of your sword. The air is thick with the acrid tang of gunpowder. Every breath feels like a small betrayal. Above you, the sky glows orange, not from the sunset, but from flames licking the patches of ruin below. Then you see them. The janissaries, a wall of bodies, blades glinting in the dimming light, all charging as one. They don't hesitate, they don't falter. You can hear their war cries now, loud and sharp, cutting through the chaos. Somewhere behind you, a man says a prayer under his breath. He's not wrong to. By the time they hit the walls, it's chaos. Swords clash with steel, and suddenly nothing else matters. There are no cannons, no siege towers, no history books waiting to tell this tale later. There's just this fight, the blood pounding in your ears, the muscles in your arms screaming as you parry blow after blow. You don't think anymore, you just react. The cries of the wounded, the shriek of metal cutting through flesh, the acrid scent of desperation, it all merges into one horrifying symphony. The janissaries are relentless, pushing harder with each moment, but your brothers fight back just as fiercely. For every knight that falls, another pushes forward to take his place. It's not courage, it's necessity, and then through the haze it dawns on you, this is only the beginning. St. Elmo might still stand now, but it can't hold forever. It wasn't designed to. Not against this kind of assault. You grit your teeth and keep fighting, even as your arms grow heavy and your body screams for you to stop. You're not fighting for victory anymore. You're fighting for time. The screams of the wounded and the breathless grunts of the living follow you out of the melee as the horizon glows faintly with the last light of day. The siege isn't over. It won't be for weeks. But for now, St. Elmo stands. A night's diet, sustaining the fight. You're starving. This isn't the kind of low blood sugar you grumble about today when you've skipped breakfast. This is the kind of gnawing, hollow ache that sets your hands trembling when you lift the wooden bowl in front of you. You glance down, and your first instinct is to hesitate. What you're staring at can be generously called food, though it clearly came from the darker corners of the supply barrel. Thin gruel, gray and watery, dotted with floating bits of something unidentifiable. It smells faintly rancid, like grain gone bad before it should have been ground into flour. But there's no time to contemplate its origin or flavor. Starving men don't have the luxury of being picky. Your breathing slows. You force down the first bite as if it's a punishment, swallowing hard to fight the gag reflex rising in your throat. Believe it or not, this is the good part of the meal. Sitting beside your bowl is a slice of bread, if you can even call it that. It's more stone than sustenance, so dense and hard that breaking off a piece feels like working with masonry. With no butter or yeast to lighten the texture, it crumbles in dry, tooth-breaking chunks. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you wonder if losing one of your molars in a bite would mean more calories. You chew, jaw aching, ignoring the sour taste of desperation. You don't even reach for your wooden cup right away because the water it holds is no less vile, a warm, metallic tang lingering on your tongue from the brackish liquid inside. This is your fuel, the only thing keeping you upright as you push through another endless day of survival. And it's still better than nothing. The truth is, food during the siege isn't just scarce, it's a war in itself. Every morsel you put in your mouth comes with risk. Rumors have spread, as rumors do, about poisoned supplies, a trick employed by your own men before the siege began. Malta's wells were fouled with anything that could be thrown in, bitter herbs, lime, animal carcasses left to rot in the depths. A grim tactic, but a necessary one. It was a deliberate scorched earth strategy, meant to deny the Ottomans anything the island had to offer. What you've managed to salvage from ruined crops is barely enough to sustain your garrison, let alone give you the strength needed to fight. Still, you can't help but marvel at how efficiently desperation strips away dignity. A week ago, you'd have grimaced at the gruel resting in your hands. Now, it feels like treasure. You know men around you, brothers, soldiers, would kill for another mouthful. Literally. You've heard of kitchen scraps stolen in the dead of night, men doubling back in line for extra portions, or scraping bowls during their watch shifts. You even caught a younger squire trying to slip a pigeon carcass into his tunic for later roasting. Not that you blamed him. But as bleak as this morning feels, you also know it could be much worse. Out there, somewhere on the Turkish side of the siege lines, are tens of thousands of soldiers facing their own battle with hunger. Logistical nightmares choke supply chains stretched thin all the way back to Constantinople. The Ottomans arrived with one of the largest forces the Mediterranean's ever seen, an army of 40,000 to 50,000 strong, not counting the slaves rowing their galleys or tending the kitchens. Feeding them all is a problem bigger than any cannon or siege tower. They've already burned through most of what they brought with them, raiding coastal farms in Barbary and stretching their supply lines to their limit. That level of demand under Malta's relentless summer sun takes its toll. Horses drop dead in the heat. Men collapse from dehydration before they ever see the battlefield. It's small comfort, but comfort nonetheless, knowing that your enemy is as vulnerable to exhaustion and starvation as you. Even so, the irony doesn't escape you. You're both fighting at extremes just to keep breathing. Theirs is a monumental task of bringing the food in. Yours is preserving the scraps you have left before nothing remains at all. Your commanders have praised this scorched earth approach as brilliant, reminding you that every poisoned well, every torched field, increases your chances of survival. The Grand Master himself issued those orders weeks before the siege. his voice steady as he told the knights that this would give them an advantage when the Ottomans landed. It's easier to believe strategies like this when you aren't the one face down in a bowl of bile-flavored porridge. The civilians who fled Malta's countryside don't consider it brilliant either. They're living in the same living hell as you, and every act of self-sabotage to weaken the enemy has only made it harder for their families to stretch what little is left. Historians still argue whether de Vilette's actions were visionary or heartless. On paper, it reads like a masterstroke. Throw the logistics of the enemy into chaos while fortifying your own limited resources. But in practice, it's created suffering so immense it's hard to know how to feel. Maybe that's the cost of survival. Unforgivable decisions made in the hopes of seeing another sunrise. Or maybe, just maybe, some lines shouldn't have been crossed, even under siege. That debate doesn't matter much to you right now. Your reality is simpler. Hunger is law. You eat what you're given, however pitiful, or you don't eat at all. One of your brothers in arms groans across the table. You glance up to find him staring at his meal like it just insulted his family. You'd think, he says, shaking his head, that after so many prayers, God might have spared us proper bread at least. His complaint earns a low chuckle from the men nearby, though there's no humor behind it. The kind of laughter that breaks tension feels more like habit than joy. You shrug, lifting the hunk of bread in your hand for emphasis. Think of it as training. After all this, steel plates will feel soft. More chuckles. Not much comfort, but at least it holds the weight of shared misery, not the kind one person carries alone. Poor diets have an effect on you that you can't ignore. Your joints feel slower than they should. Muscles that once held firm begin to soften. Your stamina burns down faster than you'd like to admit. Every movement feels heavier than it needs to be. Good thing adrenaline is a miraculous fuel source. It's hard to notice dehydration making your head swim when you're running from cannonballs or holding a spear against a wave of janissaries. This morning, however, there are whispers, passing from soldier to soldier like drops of water in a desert. Reinforcements could be arriving soon. The news is so unexpected, you almost choke on a spoonful of gruel when you first hear it from one of the squires. If it's true, it means help's on the way. Food, weapons, relief for your wounds, all the things you've been slowly resigning yourself to living without. But it's only a rumor for now, and rumors are dangerous things. They give men hope, and hope, as you've learned, has its price. Just as your thoughts begin to drift into half-formed dreams of salted fish and fresh bread, another horn cuts the air. Sharp, a sound that wakes up every nerve in your body. In seconds, the makeshift chatter disappears. Every man's instinct sharpens like the edge of a blade. Before anyone can shout orders, you're already on your feet, gripping your weapon tight enough that the hilt feels like it might fuse with your hand. What little food remains on the table is abandoned. It simply doesn't matter anymore. Hunger's been beaten back by something far stronger. As you follow the swell of bodies rushing toward the courtyard, your stomach twists, not from hunger this time, but from anticipation. Whatever slim hope of pacing yourself through another endless day vanishes in an instant. You grit your teeth, swallow what's left of your fear, and force your head high as you prepare to meet whatever comes bearing down on those walls. The fight for survival has a way of sharpening your focus, even when your body aches. Even when your hands tremble and your knees feel lined with sand, there's a clarity in the moment, the kind your daily pains can't drown out. It's also immediate, so raw there's no room for doubt. Hunger is forgotten for now, burned away by something far deeper, the driving need to keep the people around you breathing that little bit longer. You march with the others, the faint tang of metal and gunpowder already stinging your nose. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you can still taste the gruel sitting heavy in your gut, an unwelcome reminder of the morning's quiet miseries. But that moment seems so distant now, like it happened to a stranger in another time. Right now, you have a wall to defend, and it's all that's keeping you alive. The elderly Grand Master, a reluctant hero. Jean de Valette shouldn't be alive, let alone standing here. He's 70 years old, an age where most men would rather be warming their knees beside a hearth than holding the weight of an entire war on their shoulders. And yet, here he is. Not just alive, but everywhere. On the walls, in the trenches, barking orders, lifting morale with nothing but his presence. If there's anyone holding this whole operation together, it's him. He's the Grand Master of the Knights Hospitaller, your leader, your symbol of hope, and if you're being honest, your lifeline. You see him before you hear him. He's jogging across the courtyard, or at least attempting to jog, legs weighed down by armor that reflects the harsh Mediterranean sunlight in wavering streaks. He stops near a group of weary defenders, blackened with soot, streaked with blood, faces taut with exhaustion. His sword is drawn but not raised, the polished blade hanging by his side, as though even it understands its wielder has greater weapons. Words. Leadership, presence. These are the things Devilette wields with precision. He steps into their huddle, stoops slightly to look each man in the eye, and it's as though his gaze physically lifts them from their slouching misery. You remember watching that moment, standing just out of sight behind the half-destroyed ramparts, and wondering how he carries so much weight. Not just the armor and the sword, heavy as they are, but the crushing anxiety of knowing every eye on this battlefield is watching him for guidance. Somehow he never flinches. The truth is, Devilette has no choice. He knows that just as you do, this siege doesn't have room for hesitation. Not with the Ottomans' cannons systematically dismantling every stone fortification in sight, pushing rubble and bodies into the same dusty piles. The Grand Master's presence isn't optional, it's essential. His men are fighting one of the largest military forces of the 16th century, outnumbered 2, maybe 3 to 1, and yet here you stand, together, rallying behind this one individual who refuses to break. His face is lined with age, his eyes darkened with something you wouldn't call fear, more like responsibility worn thin by repetition. And yet his voice, even raised over the ongoing chaos, cuts through the air like those cannon blasts never touched him. "Hold the line," he shouts, the words jolting through the men like adrenaline injected straight into their veins. You've heard the stories about him, of course. Everyone has. Jean de Valette isn't so much a name as a legend, whispered among soldiers when the nights stretched too long. He's been preparing for this his entire life. A veteran of the bloody 1522 siege of Rhodes, where the Ottomans made good on their promise to evict the Knights Hospitaller from the Aegean, he's been carrying that loss for decades. It carved something into him, call it focus, call it resolve, that none of his brothers could match. You've heard whispers about how he was once captured by Barbary pirates, condemned to a brutal fate as a galley slave. Shackled to an oar, hauling endlessly across the Mediterranean, starved and beaten until he either died or broke, but he survived. Survived, escaped, and came back stronger for it, as though every injury, every scar, only sharpened him further. If you believe in fate or divine intervention, it's hard not to wonder if every one of those trials was shaping him for this moment. Standing there now, you can't help but notice the way time has worn him down. His armor, though impeccably maintained, fits awkwardly in places like it's trying to reshape itself around an aging frame. His hands shake sometimes when he pauses for breath after barking orders. They say he spends hours in the chapel every night, down on his knees until even the cold stone beneath him must ache, asking for guidance, strength, forgiveness, or maybe all three. You wonder how he does it. How he walks past the piles of broken men, the shattered defenses, the unending sense that the odds are stacked against you, and still finds the strength to command. Not only that, Lead de Valette isn't here for glory. Far from it. You've heard him mutter under his breath during the fleeting moments when things go mercifully quiet, and none of it sounds like ambition. If anything, he carries himself like someone reluctantly thrust into greatness, like the weight of the Grand Master's ceremonial robes is heavier than anyone realizes. His decisions often feel impossibly cold. It was his call to poison the wells and burn the fields when the Ottomans first landed, to deny them any resources they might scavenge. Vigilance will be our shield, he told you, and his words weren't up for debate. The wells were fouled before a single invader set foot on the island. Some knights grumbled about it at the time. Why should our own people go thirsty just to spite the enemy? But as the siege drags on and fresh water runs dry, even the most cynical among you grudgingly recognize the brilliance behind that brutality. Historians still argue whether these tactics were pure genius or a necessary evil, but in the moment, you don't have time for academic debates. De Valet's plans are the only thing keeping you from being overrun, and it's not just the planning. He puts himself where the action is. You've seen it with your own eyes, right there in the moments when everything seems like it's about to collapse. Jean de Valette personally led charges during the siege's darkest chapters, when the defenses faltered and the lines wavered. One of those moments replays in your memory like a fever dream. The defenses at Burgos were splintering under Ottoman fire. Men deserted their posts in panic, and you were certain, absolutely certain, that the battle was lost then and there. But then he appeared, de Valette, sword in hand, armor catching the dying light, the scarlet cross of the Hospitallers emblazoned boldly against the silver. No hesitation, no faltering, just a silent command to follow as he rallied the defenders into a counterattack. You'll never forget the sound of it, his shout rising above the chaos, cutting through screams and cannon fire like a blade born to part the unpartable. That single charge turned the tide that day. Not because it was brilliant, or because the men suddenly found skill where none had existed before, but because someone had to believe it was still possible to win. That's what de Valette gave them. Belief. That might not sound like much in the grand scheme of war, but when you're starving, exhausted, and down to your last ounce of fight, belief can feel like a weapon sharper than steel. They say that after the Ottomans were forced to retreat that day, some of your brothers swore they saw him smile, not the victorious grin of a general savoring his triumph. Just a brief flickering smile, quiet, almost resigned, as though it was less about winning and more about surviving to fight another day. Would any of this hold without him? It's hard to imagine. De Valette is the glue keeping this fragile resistance together. Historians debate whether his leadership was the singular reason for Malta's survival, or if the Ottomans simply underestimated how hard it would be to take the island. It's a debate your teachers can argue over in quiet, comfortable libraries centuries from now. Here now, it doesn't matter. What matters is that when you look up from the dirt, you see de Valette moving between the men. Speaking to one, steadying another, shouting at a third. His presence has this strange duality. It's reassuring, but it's also this sharp reminder that there's more yet to be done. You've made it this far, but the road ahead is long, too long. Later, as the sun dips toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the battlefield, you catch a glimpse of him in a rare, quiet moment. He's standing on the walls at Burgos, leaning against the edge, his shoulders slumped in a way that makes him look almost unfamiliar. You half expect him to stumble under the weight of everything on his back, but he doesn't. He doesn't even lean that long. There's still work to be done. He straightens up, brushes the dust off his tunic, and begins his descent back into the maze of fortifications below. Just before he disappears from sight, something strange happens. He catches your eye. It's brief, just a second of connection, but in that second, you see more than a Grand Master. You see another man just like you, weathered by the same battles, carrying the same doubts, and yet in that glance, there's something oddly calming, like he's silently telling you, keep going. We're not done yet. Tomorrow the cannons will fire again, the Ottomans will push harder. More men will fall, but tonight, in this quiet moment before the next storm, it's enough to know there's at least one man who won't break, who can't break, because the hopes of so many rest on his refusal to bend. You take a deep breath, clutch your weapon, and feel the faintest flicker of energy rush back through your aching muscles. No one says it out loud, but you know, de Valette doesn't sleep tonight. He'll pray, he'll plan, he'll pace, and when the fighting begins anew, he'll be there. Conclusion. The Great Siege of Malta was more than a battle, it was proof of what desperate determination can do. Faced with an unstoppable Ottoman force, the defenders didn't just survive, they changed history. By holding this rocky island, they shattered the empire's aura of invincibility, inspiring unity across Europe. Without Malta's resilience, victories like the Battle of Lepanto might never have happened. If you've ever doubted your own strength, remember, even in overwhelming odds, ordinary people achieve extraordinary things. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this journey, and share your thoughts in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan, and let's ease into the night.